the Real Estate U podcast with Lettiann.
Welcome back to Real Estate U with Lettiann. And today I have Robert Opitz on with Granite Tops and Quartz Center in Lenexa, Kansas. Welcome, Robert.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being on our show today. Today we're going to talk about countertops. So there's so many different types of countertops, Robert. I can actually get confused pretty quickly. You're probably an expert on the subject. Tell us a little bit about the different types of countertops that are available today.
Well, most people we're doing in the Kansas City area are doing granite and quartz. It's probably about 60% granite still, 40% quartz. Quartz came on pretty heavy the last 3 to 5 years. The price is a lot higher usually than the granite choices, so that's what's making granite still a little bit stronger. But we're having a big, huge boom in quartz, gray and white quartz colors.
So, but there's quartz, quartzite, and then there's so many even other types of blends. Is that right? And which ones are man-made and which ones are synthetic?
The granite and quartzite are out of the ground. The quartzite used to be called in the 90s, used to be what we call the rich and famous only, but now a lot of people are starting to do it. The quartz is man-made. Those are the three main products. Travertine, limestone, slate type surfaces have sort of died off. There's still a little bit out there, maybe 3 to 5%, but usually quartz, quartzite, and granite.
So quartz, you say, is man-made?
Yes, ma'am.
Yet it is more expensive than granite. Why is that?
Well, every time man touches something and starts making something, the price seems to jump, and it's still imported a lot. Dow Tile is a U.S.-owned company, and it has a plant in the U.S. now in the last 5 years. But as far as granite and quartzite, it's coming out of the ground. It's usually out of Brazil. They've perfected it. The Italians went in there in the 90s and showed them how to do it and set up their machinery, and they made it a little bit less expensive.
So quartz, I get confused with quartz and quartzite. Why are those two names so similar, yet one is man-made and one is natural?
They just call it quartz because it does have some properties of quartz in it. So they intermix some natural materials in with man-made colors or man-made materials, and then they add a colorant to it. And there's literally 400 varieties of quartz, usually imported from overseas still. The quartzite is just usually mined in Brazil, and it's very expensive to mine because it's massively hard material. And the colors are what people fall in love with. They don't fall in love with the price because once they get the price and they see it's 2, 3 times more than their kitchen should be.
And you're talking about you're talking about quartzite right now.
Quartzite, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just trying to follow along, and I want you to continue with that. But quartzite, where does it fall? You said it's pretty difficult to mine, so it's a little more expensive. So, is it even more costly than quartz?
It is. It's usually, there are some quartzes that are way up there in the price range that are hard to make, but the quartzites are just hard to mine. They're even hard for us to cut in our shop. So it takes twice as long for us to polish quartzite, twice as long to cut, and it's also heavier. It's just denser than granite even. It's just so what we call molecularly connected. So it's not porous. It's just very, very strong.
Do they all stain, all three of those, quartz, quartzite, granite? Do they all have the capability of staining? When I say staining, I'm talking red wine or coffee.
Quartz is stain and burn resistant. That's what's scary to me. But the way I put it in, there's some quartzites that have to be super sealed, some granites that have to be sealed. But for the most part, the granites, I would say about 90% of them don't need to be sealed. It's just a misconception from the 90s because we used to bring a lot of granite out of India, and they were very light colors that were very, very porous. But now we have a lot of colors that we don't have to seal. We still do to make the homeowner comfortable. But the quartz still scares me a little bit. Like the way I put it is if I had a rental home, I'm not going to put quartz in there because it's stain and burn resistant. And I'm thinking of a renter putting a pan on the countertop and burning it. in this case, as far as granite or quartzite, you're not going to burn it. So I still lean towards the natural colors. They're just more vibrant.
So, and we'll move on from countertops, but so many people, as a real estate professional, they ask about countertops, and sometimes it's so hard to tell the difference. Is there any tricks to saying, oh yes, this is cool? I mean, I can pretty much tell granite, but are there any tips or tricks that one can say, oh yeah, this is quartzite, or oh yeah, this is quartz?
Well, the quartzite will stand out by itself because nothing has been able to mimic that yet. But there have been a few quartzes that it really caught me after 25 years. I was like, what is this? But it's usually a little bit more plasticky looking. And then the key to it, this is going to sound real bad, but if you go underneath the countertop, let's say it's a big island, you usually can see writing from the factory. And then it's stenciled with their company name. And then it won't have the saw marks that granite or quartzite will have. So
quartz does it have that brownish looking thing? If you look underneath, it looks kind of brown.
It's the same color as the top, just doesn't have the veining, and the veining doesn't go all the way through on the quartz. Okay. So you can usually see that it doesn't have saw marks from the blades when they put it in the factory. And then it'll say, like, if it's Caesar stone, Sile stone, or MSI, it'll usually have a brand on the back. So Sile stone is a form of quartz? Yep. Okay. What is soapstone? This is my last countertop question, and we're going to move on to kitchens. But what is soapstone? Soapstone's brought out of Brazil and Vermont. It's never really taken over the market. It has its own niche. It's about as soft as limestone, so we have to be careful when we use it. I do it a lot with one designer in town off of Ward Parkway, where she does a lot of the bigger, older houses. And then we go in, and the funny thing is we'll take the soapstone and we'll stain the countertop with an oil, so it'll bring out the dark, rich color. But it's harder to get now than it was in the 90s and early 2000s. It's just not as prevalent because people, they want the light colors. They want the gray and white granite or gray and white quartz. Yeah, and they're typically a little bit darker, the soapstone, right? Oh yeah, for sure. It'll come into a green and black color. Yes, we have that in our powder room off of our kitchen. Yes, it's definitely very pretty. So what are the biggest changes you're seeing in kitchen remodels, or new kitchens for that matter? Well, definitely the last 5 years, everybody started opening up their kitchens. They wanted to knock down walls. They wanted the open concept. Biggest thing for sure, at least a couple times a week, if I go in 5 to 8 homes per day, what I'll see is people want to take down their raised bars. That's the biggest thing. They don't care what it costs. They just want the raised bar down. They want to bring in a quartz or granite or quartzite and make a huge island. And they want that to be the focal point of their kitchen. So just to, if people are wondering what you mean by take the raised bar down, that's a kitchen island that has a work surface and maybe your sink or a cooktop, but then around where those persons would sit, it's actually raised up several inches. That's what you're talking about. They want to knock that top bar down and make it all one level and bigger. Exactly. And I do it every single day. We just we got to take out the tile backsplash. We got to have the electrical move to the sides of the island. And then I have a carpenter come in and he cuts it down. And then we go ahead and make one huge island. And the only thing that's a negative in that, if you're in love with your bar stools, you're not going to use those bar stools anymore because they're too tall. Yep, the wrong height. The wrong height for sure. But that's exactly what Facebook Marketplace is for, to sell those things. And, yeah. I just told a customer that yesterday, a young couple, and they wanted to cut it down. I go, you got to get rid of your bar stools. And they said, oh, we'd love to. So, Robert, if someone's planning a kitchen remodel, generally they're going to hire a general contractor. And what's the best order for a kitchen remodel? Maybe some people are do-it-yourselfers. You probably see that as well. What's the best order for someone to remodel their kitchen? Well, I get into that sometimes with the homeowner because they'll have a hardwood floor guy come in or a cabinet guy before me, and they'll say, okay, this guy wants to get in before you. And I'm saying, no, we're going to do the best order of things for you. So you're not going to waste your money. And what happens if you have the tradesmen on top of each other, we could hit the cabinet and the cabinet's already been resurfaced, or we're bringing in an 800-pound island and they've had their wood floors just done and they're not cured. So what I tell people is let's take out the backsplash first, get the tile out, get the old tops out, get the new tops in, then let's get the tile in, the new tile, and then let's go ahead and have the cabinet guy come in. He's usually about 2 weeks. And then if you're painting the walls, I want the walls done next. And then the last man out is always floor man.
The floor guy, right.
Yes, yep.
Very good. So why is Lenexa, Kansas one of the hubs for quartz and granite?
Oh, it's a funny story, and I love to be a part of that. But in 1995, I had come out of the Army, and I was down on the plaza waiting tables for the first time in my life for 30 days. It was the weirdest thing because I was a terrible waiter. And I met these two guys that were coming in from Denver, and they were going to start the first importing company in Kansas. So there were no importers anywhere. What happened is they opened it. They asked me to join them in 95, and from that point on, Lenexa just grew. It was called IMG, and then $1 billion company bought us out in 2002. But then now there's 5 importers in Lenexa supplying 5 states. And it just became the hub because it's centered so perfectly. So they're supplying Kansas, Missouri, the Dakotas, Nebraska, and down into Oklahoma. So.
Do they bring them in via railway, or do they bring those in on truck? I mean, I would think being in the center of the country, which is where we are right here in the Kansas City metro area, I would think railways would be used a lot. But
oh, they are.
Okay.
Yeah. For sure. What happens is, let's say they come in through Port of Houston, the containers do from Brazil. Then Port of Houston, they'll put them on a railway. The railway will bring them up into Kansas. Downtown, and then semis just deliver the containers to each importer. So being that there's 5 importers, you'll see in Lenexa, you'll see containers outside of these buildings every day, and they have 3 days to unload the containers. The containers usually have about 50 slabs of different colors in them that are brought in primarily from Brazil, but they also bring in from India and China, and then even Israel, and wherever the quartz is made too. There's all kinds of new countries doing quartz, even over in Korea, Thailand, stuff like that.
So for the people watching, if you've never Googled or gone to YouTube to check out a video about mining granite or mining quartz, it's fascinating. It's incredible, these beautiful pieces of rock that they pull out of the ground. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's remarkable. What happens down in Brazil, it's pretty funny. What they do is they'll go out somewhere and they'll find a rock quarry, and that's not being mined, and they'll find a rock, and they'll actually put a GPS coordinate on it, bring it back to the factory, polish it up, see if it's a viable color, and the color could be good for commercial, which commercial doesn't need the vibrant colors a homeowner does. It can be boring and bland, but then if it's good for the consumer, residential, then they're all over it. They'll start mining that and going crazy. So,
Robert, Granite Tops and Quartz Center in Lenexa, Kansas, you do far more than offer slabs of several different types of countertops. What else can people come to your shop and shop for?
Well, I try to be a one-stop shop. So what happens is people do not want to have, if they want to act as their own GC, they don't want to have 5 different people or 5 different contractors doing all their work. So what we do is we'll do your kitchen, your bar, your vanities, but we'll also do your backsplash. I do your plumbing. I do your electrical. I try to cover it all completely.
Yeah, you personally, or you have people on staff to do that?
I have 12 guys. I have a foreman that runs everything. I have install crews. I have a production shop that all my guys, most of my people have been there about 14 years. I have a guy that's been templating for 30 years. So he comes out to your house and templates your kitchen or your bar or whatever. And then I have 3 ladies that run the facility as far as, they'll help you with your tile selection. They'll take your tile out to your countertops that have already been delivered to our warehouse, and we'll match up your tile. We'll do your edging, pick out your edge. We'll pick out your sink. And I have one lady, and it happens to be her birthday today, Karen.
It's Karen's birthday? Oh.
Yeah, Karen's 37. She's 37, 4 degrees, and a photographic memory, and she runs everything.
She
So
does.
she'll remember-
I've been there.
Yeah, she'll
I've seen
remember-
her. I thought she owned the place.
Well, you know what's funny is I own a tile company too, and to keep her years ago, I gave her half ownership of my tile company.
Good for you.
But she'll
Smart move.
remember, like your soapstone vanity, she'll remember your name, your soapstone, your address. She'll remember your edge and how many years ago it was.
Does she remember we're still waiting for it to be oiled? No, I'm not kidding.
I guarantee it. But I'll come out next week if you want, or this week before I go to Florida and do that for you if you want.
Yes, please. That would be great. That would be so great. I just splatter water all over it just to give it that oiled look. And then it dries, and then, but I mean, I love the soapstone. It's absolutely beautiful. But yes, we would welcome the oil, the finish on that. That'd be great. So thank you so much for your time today, Robert. I'll tell you, I've shopped at Granite Tops and Quartz Center, your shop in Lenexa. Karen couldn't be more helpful. She couldn't do enough for you. And the selection that you have is fantastic. So anyone who is out there might be wanting to remodel their bar or remodel their kitchen or their bathrooms, any of their bathrooms, please consider Granite Tops and Quartz Center in Lenexa, Kansas. So Robert, thank you so much for being on our show today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, you bet. Have a safe trip to Florida. I hope you missed the hurricanes. And I know, I mean, it's been a crazy season of hurricanes. So have a safe trip. And for those of you watching, we thank you for tuning in to Real Estate U with Lettiann, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.